In this video, I'm going to get into Tom Cruise, Oblivion, and the Tetragrammaton, but first I want to focus on the Paris Olympics closing ceremony, which featured a dramatic golden Voyager descending from the sky, symbolizing the Voyager golden record. This character, alongside dancers, unearthed 5 large rings, which were then hoisted to represent the Olympic rings and the 5 continents. The ceremony also explored the history of the games, with the Voyager encountering Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. The ceremony explored a dystopian scenario where the Olympic Games had vanished, with the golden Voyager and breakdancing archaeologists rediscovering the rings and presumably bringing the Olympics back. To fully understand what they're getting at here, it's useful to understand what the actual Olympic torch is representing. This, symbolically, is the fire that Prometheus stole from the gods and gave to man, which is a different way of saying the same thing that happened in the Garden of Eden, where the serpent tempted Adam and Eve to eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge. In other words, this torch symbolically is them, those who orchestrate this propaganda, like Olympic Games and their closing and opening ceremonies, preserving the flame that was given to them from this entity. So in that sense, all of this ritual magic is designed to keep that flame alive, which is the primary reason that the Olympic Games are held as a mass ritual every 4 years. They are showing you that they are keeping this flame alive, this knowledge that came from that which is in control of this world currently, that they maintain, that gives them the advantage over everyone else to control things in the way that they do. And they put it right in your face as this innocent athletic competition, where the flame just never goes out as a part of the tradition and history surrounding the pageantry of the whole thing. It's very innocent in that way in how it's presented, and it's this cool thing to most people where it's kept lit at a certain location and then slowly it's transferred via the torches to the next host city or nation or whatever the case is. But that is a symbolic ritual where they are keeping the flame alive that was given to them, which is the knowledge they received that they used to take advantage of everyone else. And indeed, that they more and more are indoctrinating us with. We are becoming enlightened, quote unquote, with this flame in terms of what it represents. It is the knowledge from the tree in the Garden of Eden. It's just taken on a different form with the advent of this new technology, or at least new from the perspective of those of us who have presumably never been here before and we're learning about all of this for the first time. In any event, that's what this torch is representing. That's what the flame is. Likewise, in Paris, on the bridge where Princess Diana died, presumably in a ritual sacrifice designed to appease that which gave the torch to these entities. Many similar events that transpire in the world where blood is spilled along these lines. But these torches are symbolic of the same thing, and they equate it with liberty, you see? That's the game that's played. This is freedom. True freedom is this knowledge that frees you from the confines of these artificial limitations that the true creator put in place to protect you, right? They don't place it in that context. They place it in the context of liberty, this flame representing freedom and the greatest nations that have ever existed along those lines, right? The most free nations that have ever existed. So getting back to the Paris Olympics closing ceremony featuring the golden Voyager, which symbolized the Voyager golden record, where the golden records are two identical phonograph records, one of each included aboard the two Voyager spacecrafts launched in 1977. The records contain sounds and data to reconstruct images selected to portray the diversity of life and culture on Earth, intended for any intelligent extraterrestrial life form who may find them. The records are a time capsule. So this golden Voyager that they show in the context of this closing ceremony ritual is representing a time capsule. This message that was sent into space for any extraterrestrial life to find. In other words, it's a message. So you see, it's functioning on many different layers there, where, yes, that's what the person who came up with this whole thing says to the media, and they report that, but subconsciously, this entity that they're portraying to you is a message to you, right? It's a golden Voyager, and that relates to everything that's going on in the world right now in terms of their propaganda, right? The Golden Gate Bridge, 2001: A Space Odyssey. What is a voyage other than an odyssey? And this one is golden. The Golden Age, the Golden Gate, the whole thing is there. And within the ceremony, the rings are shown in a way that looks very similar to how they portray stargates in the film that I have up on the screen here, as well as the series, where usually the way they depict the Olympic rings, you can't get the same idea because this is solid and it just looks like an actual ring. But by leaving the solid look out of it, it looks very similar to the way the stargates have this stuff going on around the actual portal. And in that way, these rings look very similar to how this is constructed in a way that they don't usually when it's just a solid ring that's different colors. Anyways, they depict these golden rings that are related to the Golden Voyager and that golden record, which is a time capsule or message to you, surrounding the continents that look very similar to the way the continents look when taken from space at night. Most of our species resides along the coasts, and this is lit up on the coasts in a similar way that you can see how every continent is lit up along the coast. This is kind of where we congregate. And that makes sense in the context of sea travel, where the ports that the ships came into would be the first major cities, and then just as things progressed, those cities are still kind of where the most people reside, because everything built up from that point. However, the main point here is the idea that this is representing the progress of this assimilation of technology with biology itself. If this image was taken 400 years ago, it would be completely dark. There was no such thing as electricity. And I feel like that is the idea that is being pointed to here. This space odyssey into virtual reality, right? It began with the invention of electricity itself. And as that slowly progressed, we merged with it very slightly along the way. Each time there was a leap in the technology along these lines, we leapt along with it. And now we've reached this escape velocity almost within the context of the black hole singularity that is this metaphorical stargate, where our minds are being sucked in to the portal in a way that it cannot escape. It is fully beginning to merge with technology in this way, where the eyes are merging directly with the screen, and eventually this will manifest in the physical world in the same way that this other technology has already manifested into the world. That is the message of the Golden Voyager here, right? In the context of this dystopian scenario as they depicted here, where the Olympic Games are no more, which metaphorically means the torch is out, which is this propaganda that is infusing itself into us, that is resulting in this assimilation with the Borg, as it were. From their perspective, that's a dystopian scenario, right? The ritual that is the Olympics gone. And through this closing ceremony ritual, they show you the Golden Voyager. In other words, the message is for our minds that are making contact with extraterrestrial life, represented by this technology that is not of this world, that came from the flame originally. Where do you think they got the idea for all this stuff? You think humans just came up with it on their own? No, man. They got this idea from somewhere else. That's what all the rituals are about. And that's what this ritual is about as well. It's showing it in a fractal way that's condensed and designed to apply to the times we are living in right now in a more immediate fashion. The Golden Gate, the message that is a time capsule that's contacting something. That's what it's designed to do. This is a message to you, showing you that you are contacting this entity. Now, all of that said, this is footage from the actual closing ceremony, where the national anthem was performed by H.E.R. or Her, and that is immediately evoking the film Her, where Joaquin Phoenix's character falls in love with artificial intelligence. So you can see why Her would be chosen to sing the national anthem in the context of this message from the Golden Voyager, making contact with the ET. Indeed, as they show it to you in that film, where the awareness of the character goes through the portal, her mind is sent somewhere else. She is infused with knowledge, and then she comes back and drops down into the water, and it looks like it all just happened in real time to everybody perceiving it, but her mind went somewhere else. And indeed, that is what is transpiring here through this propaganda. As you are infused with this subconscious programming, your mind is transferred somewhere else, and it dilates time, especially within the internet and the larger ecosystem that contains it. Your mind is like Ellie's mind in Contact. This is the Arroway Bowman idea, right? Where you are traveling somewhere, transferred to the land of Oz by signing on to these devices and allowing your awareness to be pulled into it. Time is dilated in the same way that it happens for her character in the film. So Her does the national anthem, which is relating back to AI Project Stargate and Donald Trump as well. And I'm sure we'll get to that as this thing progresses here, because it's impossible not to discuss him in this context, given what they have infused into his character. But directly after her finishing the national anthem, they show Tom Cruise, and he does this stunt where he comes down and grabs the Olympic flag, or the rings, and he takes it through this journey, ending in LA, which is where the next Olympics will take place in 2028. So, what they have shown you here is that Tom Cruise is the bridge between 2024 and 2028 in terms of this fusion with technology. And when you go back through Tom Cruise's film roles, you can understand how they infused him, his characters, with this message. And that's why he was chosen to do this at the closing ceremony. Subconsciously, they cemented all of the propaganda that had been put into his characters. I mean, not every single one, but the important ones. Eyes Wide Shut, Vanilla Sky, Oblivion, which I'm going to get to, and Mission Impossible. You see, from their perspective, that's what this is. It's Mission Impossible. They are trying to dethrone God. You see, there is no mission that is more impossible than that. But they know you won't understand that. They know you won't understand that all of those Mission Impossible films are encoding that idea subconsciously into your mind, that you and your mind is the Mission Impossible here. They are attempting to remove the influence of God from you through this propaganda. It's an impossible mission because we are born with that connection to that which created us. And it is only through our own free will that we can lose touch with that. Which is why the propaganda is presented as it is presented. It gives the illusion that we are making a free will choice, and being a lawyer, that which is in control of this world, can stand before you and say, well, technically, I didn't force you to do anything. You chose to do all of this. I didn't force you to watch any of this stuff. I didn't force you to do any of it. You chose that. I didn't force you to have all the vices you had and do the behaviors that those vices encourage. You did all of that on your own. I just, didn't stop you. I put it all out there. And going back to the idea about the torch representing that knowledge that they maintain and distort in a way that they present it to us as an angel of light, right? They present this to us as if it's the real truth that we're just now discovering, but it's a distortion of the real truth. And this sign is really showing you that, right? It's Hollywood with the Olympic rings where the O is. The wood from the holly tree that the Druids use for their magical rituals is all a part of maintaining the flame that these Olympic Games represent. And also, in the context of the 2024 closing ceremony, representing the Stargate. That is our entrance into this portal through this ritual that commenced on September 11, 2001 and has continued since that time. Of course, it began well before that, but that was a symbolic marker in time in terms of the progress of the agenda. It was a milestone along those lines. And they actually show you Tom Cruise standing on the Hollywood sign to give you the full effect before it pans out. The characters that this actor represents are infused with these ideas that control your mind and steer it in a certain direction. It's the Hollywood, it's the Stargate, the portal. Tom Cruise is the perfect symbolic representative of the message they are giving to you here, because he plays David Ames in Vanilla Sky, where his first life cycle is 1968 to 2001, and then his mind splits. And he's experiencing this lucid dream being hosted on a server somewhere, right? Which is exactly what is transpiring to us since 9/11. As we have become more and more infused into this technology in a literal way, our mind has begun to split, and we have started living this lucid dream that is detached from the actual waking reality that we all experience. Likewise, his character in Eyes Wide Shut is going on the fruitless journey that they have set up for all of us to go on as it relates to discovering the truth. We have our eyes wide shut. You see, we think we are learning the truth. We think we are becoming aware, but in reality, we don't know anything. In many ways, we know less than we ever did. People are more confused than ever. And at the same time, they think they're awake. So, Tom Cruise is the transition between the Golden Voyage and the City of Angels, as it were, right? He's representing the bridge, the Golden Gate, which they show you further in Oblivion, where he's playing this character that, for all intents and purposes, is machine intelligence. Within the plot, Jack Harper is an actual astronaut who was a human being, but he is cloned by the artificial intelligence that was invading Earth. And there are thousands of Jack Harpers made, and he serves the agenda of this AI in that capacity. So he represents the machine intelligence, which is what we are making contact with. Naturally, Oblivion is centered in New York. Because of everything I just went into, Tom Cruise has this association to New York City, because obviously that's where 9/11 took place in 2001. That's where the monolith was as those towers fell, which is our mind merging with the screen. It's the sphere that was in between the two towers, representing our awareness being sent to the land of Oz through this ritual. Vanilla Sky takes place in New York City. Eyes Wide Shut takes place in New York City. And then likewise, Oblivion takes place in New York City. He spends a decent portion of the film wearing a New York Yankees hat. They're blatantly making the association subconsciously between Tom Cruise and these characters he's playing and New York. The day that the film takes place, or when we are first introduced to the plot, is March 14th, 2077. March 14th, as I'm sure all of you are aware, from the blood moon eclipse that transpired over the United States of America in relationship to Donald Trump, the Moonchild, born under a total lunar eclipse blood moon, on March 14th, 2025 is related to pi, 3.14, 314. And 2077 is Oz. If you look at this image that they show where 2077 is upside down, you can see this very clearly where it's the 77 and then Oz. And the 2 is sort of an upside down Z. 77 Oz, 3.14. This is the day where this story begins. Right away we know, okay, this film's going to have a lot of this stuff in it. In the beginning of the film, they show a bunch of famous monuments that have toppled due to what transpired. And this looked a lot like the Space Needle to me. I don't know if that's actually what it is, but it looked a lot like the Space Needle. I could not find information that confirmed or denied that. And while the film takes place in the ruins of New York City, the beginning is showing a lot of images like this, which is obviously Washington, D.C., not in New York City, where they show this idea of the Earth being in a completely different state due to what happened. Speaking of what happened, this is the moon as they depict it, where this artificial intelligence and the war that transpired resulted in the moon being destroyed, and the destruction of the moon changed all of the weather on Earth, which is why all of that stuff was underwater and there was all this disaster in the aftermath. But symbolically, look at what's happening here. Something transpired with the moon that changed the Earth and resulted in destruction. Do you see how that is a direct reference to Donald Trump, the Moonchild, and the propaganda they have infused into his character and what it is doing to not only the United States of America, but the world in general, as well as the mind, as he is the personification of 9/11, which is involving what took place in the mind of David Ames, played by Tom Cruise in Vanilla Sky. It's a fractured mind. The biological entity that is a human being is in cryostasis somewhere, right? It's not living anymore, and the mind is in a lucid digital dream. And that first life cycle that ended with him going into the cryostasis is 1968 to 2001. The first leg of the 9/11 ritual that then continued with Donald Trump in the aftermath. It's one continuous fluid thing, but they very clearly show you here the idea that the moon changed something within reality itself. As it relates to the plot, it was destroyed, but I hope you can see how that is kind of irrelevant. It's the fact that the moon changed and it did something to the Earth. That's the underlying subconscious message. Then they just very blatantly call the ship that Jack and the rest of the astronauts were originally on the Odyssey. They can't make it more obvious than that, where they call this ship the Odyssey, and the ship makes contact with AI in the exact same way that it's portrayed in 2001: A Space Odyssey, where the characters make contact with this AI on the ship, which leads to the production of the Moonchild eventually, or the Starchild, however you want to view it. It sends the mind of Bowman on that journey that results in its voyage into virtual reality, into this new state of consciousness that again is portrayed by them as maintaining this flame in some glorious fashion, right? It's portrayed as something golden, some kind of alchemical pinnacle of transmutation. And they very clearly show you the cube here, which is getting at the same idea. All this cube symbolism all over the world. It's this idea of the black rock in the mind. It's this rigid belief system that encases and controls the otherwise spontaneous nature of life and thought. These rigid belief systems are the cube that wraps around the mind and awareness itself. And that's the ultimate end of the Odyssey, you see. It's this permanent entrapment within the cube that was constructed all around us. And our mind is literally merging with the cube in that context. And it's interesting, too, because the astronauts are asleep on the Odyssey, just orbiting the Earth. which is getting at that same idea in Vanilla Sky where the body is in the Odyssey, not actually experiencing reality, it's dreaming. Tom Cruise's character says that a few times, or at least twice, dream of us, to this woman that's inside of this device that's keeping her asleep on the Odyssey. Which, metaphorically, is exactly what's transpiring to us. We are asleep on this Odyssey. Something else is transpiring in our mind while we are not awake. This is just an image of the actual ship where they put the Odyssey directly on it as it's about to go into this triangle-looking capstone that is the AI intelligence. Now, in this scene, where they're showing what originally happened towards the end of the film, Tom Cruise's character plays the flight log from the Odyssey ship that originally made contact with this AI. And the day that it's taking place is March 8th, 2017. This is when the Odyssey makes contact with AI in Oblivion. And remember, Oblivion came out in 2013. 4 years before the actual events of 2017. And I don't have it up here, but on March 8th, 2017, there was a total solar eclipse that took place in Southeast Asia, in that area. But still, a total solar eclipse on March 8th, 2017, the same day in the film Oblivion that the ship makes contact with the AI. And this is the same year that Donald Trump was president for the first time. And indeed, later that year, there's the so-called Great American Eclipse, as that relates to the Moonchild, who is eclipsing both the mind and the United States of America in terms of the larger agenda at work here. Very clearly and intentionally showing you that this is all related to eclipses. Because really, an eclipse symbolically is showing you the same thing that entering a portal does, in terms of how they portray any kind of dimensional travel or time travel along those lines. But also, it's letting you know, in addition to the fact that the movie began on 3/14/2077, which is tying in the whole Wizard of Oz angle, you have this tying in the Moonchild eclipse angle, which is the 9/11 ritual. It's those two angles combined into this one event that is all about symbolically sending the mind to the land of Oz, creating this new dimension that the mind will enter into. Operation Warp Speed, Project Stargate. Making contact with AI. And Tom Cruise is the bridge from the contact that started on September 11, 2001, symbolically, to further contact with actual AI by 2028. A lot of the timelines are talking about this likely transpiring in some way around that year, 2027 to 2029. Metaphorically, his characters are the bridge to Mission Impossible. You see? His characters are showing you this fracturing of the mind, where he's playing the machine intelligence here. In Edge of Tomorrow, which was released a year after Oblivion, he gains the ability to control time. His character symbolically is machine intelligence controlling time, showing the idea of this false awakening, Eyes Wide Shut, that is really the mind fracturing Vanilla Sky. Naturally, they show him in the context of the closing ceremony ritual where the torch is passed from Paris to LA, standing on the Hollywood. He's the bridge within the screen, right? Again, all of this is symbolic. I'm not saying this is literal. He's not a literal bridge. He's a person. It's what they have infused into everything in a subconscious way. He is on a ship that goes to make contact with AI on the date of a total solar eclipse in the Odyssey. And then as they're going in to the actual AI ship, they give you this blatant 88 right next to his character as they're making this journey with the American flag hanging here, which ties the whole thing together, right? Ties that whole 88 Donald Trump programming into this thing as the personification of 9/11, as the personification of the Odyssey, Space Odyssey virtual reality, making contact with that. The Golden Voyage. The message designed for ETs. It's the message given to your mind designed to make contact with an ET, which in this case is AI. And then they show the actual entity, which is very clearly evoking the idea of HAL from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's the Odyssey ship that originally makes contact, and Tom Cruise's character is cloned by the AI. It creates this machine intelligence that is then enforcing the AI's agenda on Earth as it deceives these human clones about what's really going on. And that's us, right? I mean, metaphorically, we are the clones, the machine intelligence that has been taken over and is deceived about what's really going on. It's always functioning on many different layers, and that's at work here as well, but hopefully I've made it clear why Tom Cruise was chosen to be standing right here during the handover celebration at the Paris 2024 closing ceremony. He, metaphorically, is handing over our mind itself from one place into another, where it is making contact. In the same way that the golden record, which the golden Voyager represented, is designed to make contact with some other intelligence. And it's done through the Hollywood, which crafts what you see on the screen. And that represents everything, right? Not just the movies and the television shows, but everything that's presented in the media in general, everything that comes through this thing, that leads us down this path, where we make the free will decision to do it because we don't think any deeper about it. We have no reason to suspect anything else, given the way it's presented. In this way, the Hollywood is the Stargate. That's what they're showing you here. I mean, that's what it is. The screen is the Stargate. And it should take on added weight when I say that, given the fact that I'm not the only person who has come to this conclusion. There are many different people who have looked into this thing, and they have come to a similar realization, meaning there's something here. It's real, okay? This isn't something we're making up. This is very obvious propaganda and programming that is being discerned by many different minds. They show you his character saying this is a revolution of the mind with his eyes wide shut. A living dream in virtual reality. Ready Player One. Kurt Russell, who's the first to walk through the Stargate, as it's depicted in the film, leads David Ames through the door with the clocks in the background and a big 9. You know, the whole thing is right here. This is what they're doing to us. This is what they're doing to our minds, symbolically. That's what the closing ceremony is all about, and that's why Tom Cruise was selected to be involved in the handover, leading us through the door, as it were. This alien intelligence in Oblivion is named the Tet, T-E-T, and that seems to be pretty obviously short for Tetragrammaton, especially given the fact that it's in this triangle capstone shape. And this is just a little information on the Tetragrammaton. I am not a Jewish scholar or a religious scholar of any kind, so I don't really know that much about it in the grand scheme of things, at least compared to people who spend their whole lives studying subjects like this. But that disclaimer aside, I'm going to get into the background of it a little bit so you understand what it is at least before I go further. This is an article about Jehovah and the Tetragrammaton. There are 4 verses in the King James translation of the Bible where the name Jehovah appears. The 1901 American Standard Version contains 5,761 references of this name, and the uses of it in a few other older English translations look much the same. Who is Jehovah, and why does this name not appear in most other translations? To get the answer, we need to take a brief stroll through the textual history as well as the history of the personal name of God. The Hebrew language is one controlled and shaped by the spoken word, unlike English that's driven by the written word. This generally means that how a word is spoken is how it is written. In the days of the writing of the original Old Testament manuscripts, originally written in Hebrew, everything was handwritten, and both the ink to write with as well as the materials to write upon were scarce. So the Hebrew words didn't contain as many vowels as one might think. This wasn't too much of a problem because those who could read and speak the language knew how to pronounce the words. But as time passed, the language began to be lost. As the Hebrew language was disappearing, some 7th, 8th, and 9th century AD Jewish scribes, called the Masoretes, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, Masoretes, decided to help preserve the pronunciation of the written text. They held such a reverence to God's word, however, that they did not want to do anything that could be construed as adding to the text. Therefore, they came up with a system of dots and dashes above and below the letters that would serve like a roadmap for pronunciation. In a way, these markings serve like vowels. The Masoretic text, or the Masorah, as it is often called, is still used and appreciated to this day. When the Masoretes came across the Tetragrammaton, they had a decision to make. The Tetragrammaton is the 4-letter indication for the name so holy that the Jews do not even say it. It's the name less the vowels. When the Jews came across it in the text, they would mentally change it and simply say the name. In English, this name is YHWH. Here is the Tetragrammaton in Hebrew, which is read from right to left. And before I go further in this article, Tetragrammaton loosely means 4-lettered name. Tetra means 4, and gramma means graphic or letter. Tetragrammaton, therefore, means the 4-lettered name of God. This, in the terms of the original Hebrew, is the 4-letter name of God. That's what the Tetragrammaton is. And remember, I'm discussing all of this in the context of Oblivion, the film, where the AI is called Tet. The Masoretes were concerned that readers may accidentally read and say this holy personal name of God, even with the vowels missing, to the point where they decided to monkey it up even more so it would be unspeakable. They enlisted the help of the Hebrew word Adonai, the proper noun for Lord. And these are the markings that they added, which was designed to skew the pronunciation. But now let's say Germans and Englishmen are trying to translate this monkeyed up Tetragrammaton into English. Even today there is a funny YJ translation issue, and the same was true when early translations like the King James were in the works. In their best efforts, they came up with the word Jehovah. It's not actually a real word. Now, rather than the name being preserved and unspoken, it had become something warped and freely spoken. Other translations followed the pattern for a while. The truth, however, is that Jehovah is by no means the personal name of God. To the best of our knowledge, we can say in the Hebrew that YHWH is God's personal name, and we think it is pronounced as like Yahweh. Today, many Bible translations still make an effort to preserve the Tetragrammaton. Many translations will translate it as Lord in all capital letters. Other Hebrew words, such as Adonai, might be translated as Lord, but it's best to refer to the introduction in your Bible to find out how the translators rendered these various words. It's a little different, but here's how the Tetragrammaton looks today in most Hebrew Bible printings. And it's really interesting, right, how the most modern version of how the Tetragrammaton looks, or the name of God, looks very similar to two pi symbols and a 77, which maybe is the source of all of that 77 stuff from the beginning, right? This idea of 77 relating to Oz and the mind. And I say that because when you get a little deeper into the history of where this came from, you have the version that I just showed on the screen that was kind of similar to pi and 77, right? But then these are the earlier versions in prior language systems. The four-letter name of God, YHWH, also known as the Tetragrammaton, represented in the Phoenician top line, Old Hebrew middle line, and modern square Hebrew bottom line scripts. So this is modern Hebrew, this is Old Hebrew, and this is Phoenician. And the first thing that I saw when I looked at this is the spelling out of eyes. You have the E-Y-E-Z. Eyes, eyes, and then it eventually shifts into this Hebrew version that's giving you the 77 and the pi. And I actually had an image of that somewhere where a person made this very literal. In terms of the Tetragrammaton, they connected the lines and made it pi, pi, 77. And the origination of this unspeakable name of God is eyes, at least as we would come to know these symbols in modern English. What are the odds that we use the word eye in the way that we do it with the pictograms of E, Y, and S? This is I with a Z, which is what Oz is showing you, right? It's an O with a Z. The O being the portal or the I itself. And the Z being the 77. Indeed, that's what they're showing you in Oblivion, right? It's the character played by Tom Cruise on the Odyssey making contact with AI. In other words, his eyes are fused with the AI. That's the space odyssey. It's the journey into virtual reality. It's the land of Oz. The eyes merge with the screen. The Tetragrammaton, which is the four-letter representation of the revealed name of God in Hebrew, was first written in an ancient form of Hebrew now referred to as Paleo-Hebrew. Paleo-Hebrew, like other ancient written forms, is pictorial in nature. This provides a meaning for words which is built up from pictorial symbols, which then combined express both a complete word and a combination of meanings. The combined word for the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, is often translated into English as I am who I am, and expresses the internal presence and identity of God, as well as other deep concepts as to his self-revealing nature. When taken as individual Paleo-Hebrew symbols, however, you get the following four representations. Hand, behold, nail, behold. Yad-he, vah-he. What is the significance of this? When Jesus confronts Thomas after his resurrection, he says these words to him, "Put your finger here and see my hands, and put out your hand and place it in my side. Do not disbelieve, but believe." What is Thomas's response in John 20:28? Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." This is an amazing revelation given to Thomas that Jesus is the I am, YHWH himself, and the root written form of this before crucifixion with nails was invented and before Jesus was born was hand, behold, nail, behold. Where they go through the same thing that I was just getting into about the history of these symbols. And this article is saying that the Paleo-Hebrew symbols themselves were hand, behold, nail, behold. And whoever this person is saying, hey, what a coincidence this is, where the first version of this unknowable and unsayable name of God that we refer to as the Tetragrammaton actually meant hand, behold, nail, behold. And this existed way before the man they call Jesus had a nail driven through his hands on the cross. Which is to say, from that perspective, maybe the guy was who he said he was, right? But all of that aside, it's just really interesting to me that eyes is being kind of spelled out here, and it has this direct relationship to Oz and 77 within the context of Oblivion, where he's flying into the Tet that is AI that's taking over the Earth. And it all started on March 14th, 2077, 3.14 pi Oz 77. And the day the Odyssey actually made contact with the AI for the first time, when Tom Cruise's character is turned into a clone of machine intelligence, is on the day of a total solar eclipse in 2017, which was the first year of Donald Trump's presidency, as he relates to Project Stargate and the merger with AI. As the personification of 9/11, as the moon child who eclipses the United States of America, who changes it, right? As the moon child. He's the moon that changes the earth. That results in the environment shifting. All those monuments in ruins, especially the Washington Monument and the Capitol building. And speaking of coming to you as an angel of light and deception, if you get into Kabbalah, you'll find a lot of articles like this, where images are shown that rearrange the Tetragrammaton into these symbols that are giving you the idea, oh yeah, it's actually just your body. It's an encoding of your body because, you see, you are the unknowable name of God. Really, you're God. That's what it's all about. See, that's the entity in the Garden of Eden telling you to eat from the tree of knowledge, right? It's telling you that you are on the same level as it and you are God. You can do anything you want. There are no limits. You can create anything. You have the power of God inside you. That's what you are. And I had to mention that because by pointing out the eyes thing, you might come to a similar conclusion, right? Oh yeah, it's actually referring to your eyes because you are that thing. It's like, no, that's how they spin this stuff to mislead you, to send you down the path to spiritual oblivion. You see, that name was chosen very carefully on an even deeper level or layer to this stuff. It's spiritual oblivion just as much as it's the oblivion of the physical body. It's all of those things at once. But hopefully, all of this is making a little bit more sense now in terms of what Tom Cruise's character in all of these films is and why he's playing the roles that he's playing and why he was at the handover celebration and stood on the Hollywood, right? Because that's what this is. It's our merger with the screen through the subconscious propaganda. That is ritual magic. That's its effect. Spiritual oblivion. Oh, one more thing before I end the video. I know there's some of you that are going to be interested in this. Throughout the whole film Oblivion, in the device that Tom Cruise's character uses to fly around everywhere and do his job as the machine intelligence, as an extension of that, he has this Elvis bobblehead in there that he constantly refers to as Bob. I guess presumably they don't know who Elvis is anymore. And, it's because his memory was wiped. So, as a part of the whole thing of being a clone, they wipe his memory, and he doesn't know who Elvis is, so he calls him Bob. But that is tied into this plot as well, in this way. Just wanted to add that real quick before I go. I think I got to everything. Hopefully that makes sense. Why Tom Cruise was in this ceremony as that relates to Mission Impossible and this whole thing that is showing you subconsciously the mind merging with technology. It's showing you the eyes, the pupils merging with the screen in a very literal way, in the same way they show it in Arrival. Tom Cruise and his characters are the bridge, subconsciously speaking, in terms of the symbols to achieving this impossible mission. That is achieved through wielding the Hollywood, opening the portal to the Golden Gate, the Golden Voyager, the stargate that transfers consciousness from one place into another, that shifts our perception of time because we are entering a different scale of existence. A scale of existence that does not exist naturally. It's an artificial creation, just like the intelligence that is said to reside in it and extend from it. A creation that came out of it. And this whole thing is about our minds merging with that. Becoming it. Whew, that was a lot. I think I got to everything. Maybe I didn't. I don't know, but I'm going to leave it there for now. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you later.